All right, we're going to get started. The session is being recorded, as I think you saw when you logged in. The technical glitch that we're working on, unfortunately, we can't seem to resolve quickly. So that means I'm going to be doing a little multitasking in the early moments of this presentation. So forgive me for that. If I'm looking down at my phone, I promise I'm not checking Instagram. I'm trying to work on keeping this meeting going and keeping everyone informed. This is our information session for MSAC's Special Request Program. It's the 16th of March, and my name is Chad Buderbaugh. I'm Senior Program Director with MSAC. I have Laura Weiss listed here as well, Art Services Program Director. We were trying to make it so that she could help me out with some tech stuff, but that's the nature of the issue we're having. There are other staff members on the call too. I saw our Executive Director, Stephen Scarrett Davis, and our Grants Director, Kathy Teixeira. There may be others. I just haven't seen their names yet. But there's a good group here to chat with you all over the next about 55 minutes. These are the reference features of the platform we're on, Zoom. You'll toggle your sound and video on or off using the tools at the left of your toolbar. And you can use the chat function using the voice bubble icon if you prefer to communicate textually instead of verbally. There are closed caption features and a panel of reaction emojis that you can use too, as needed. I'm going to ask you all to remain muted until the Q&A portion of our presentation today, because there are quite a few of you. We have 65 in the room now, and there are quite a few more that had registered for the event. I'll read off MSAC's grounding slides now. The first is our land acknowledgement statement, developed in consultation with tribal leaders from across Maryland. We acknowledge the lands and waters now known as Maryland are the home of its first peoples, the Yakahannock Indian Tribe, Assateague Peoples Tribe, Cedarville Band of Piscataway Indians, Choptico Band of Indians, Lenape Tribe, Nanakoke Tribe, Nasuewash Band of Indians, Piscataway Conoy Tribe, Piscataway Indian Nation, Pocomoke Indian Nation, Susquehannock Indians, Youghiogheny River Band of Shawnee, and tribes in the Chesapeake watershed who have seemingly vanished since the coming of colonialism. We acknowledge that this land is now home to other tribal peoples living here in diaspora. We acknowledge the forced removal of many from the lands and waterways that nurtured them as kin. We acknowledge the degradation that continues to be wrought on the land and waters in pursuit of resources. We acknowledge the right of the land and waterways to heal so that they can continue to provide food and medicine for all. We acknowledge that it is our collective obligation to pursue policies and practices that respect the land and waters so that our reciprocal relationship with them can be fully restored. You can learn more about this statement, its development, and various region-specific statements across the state by visiting our website, msac.org, and going to the resources section. Our equity and justice statement. The arts celebrate our state's diversity, connect our shared humanity, and transform individuals and communities. MSAC and its supporting collaborators are committed to advancing and modeling equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in all aspects of our organizations and across communities of our state. MSAC and its grantees are committed to embracing equity and non-discrimination, regardless of race, religious creed, color, age, gender expression, sexual orientation, class, language, and/or ability. Our vision is to play an essential role ensuring every person has access to the transformative power of the arts. Our mission is to advance the arts in our state by providing leadership that champions creative expression, diverse programming, equitable access, lifelong learning, and the arts as a celebrated contributor to the quality of life for all the people of Maryland. We are operating currently under a strategic plan that was put into policy in 2019. That strategic plan has 5 goals, and they're listed here in bold. I'll read the bold portions of the slide only. Goal 1, increase participation. Goal 2, provide intentional support. Goal 3, build capacity. Goal 4, leverage connections. Goal 5, bolster Maryland arts. In meetings like this, we ask folks to observe the following actions in order to make sure that we're all coming from a place of respect and collaboration. Our conversation is going to be limited to the latter portion of the meeting, so mostly this is going to apply to that. Up until then, I'll just be talking at you, forgive me. But the creative meeting actions are to celebrate being in the space with other creative people, to engage with everyone's presence as a gift, acknowledge that together we know a lot, enter the conversation with curiosity and inquiry, share your idea and trust that it will be heard, use I statements, focus your language on the task at hand, hold one another accountable with care, apply the yes and strategy. In other words, I hear your idea and I'm going to add to it. And finally, to balance your speaking and listening. What we're doing today is one piece of a much larger continual offering of professional development resources coming from MSAC to you. You can look at our Eventbrite page for updates about future free professional development opportunities. Some of the typical types of sessions that we mention are listed in these bullet points here. Most of them are virtual. Some of them are in person, like the Maryland Arts Summit, which will be coming up in June. And if you see something, or if you think of something that you don't see on this list, just propose the topic for coverage on our end by emailing us at our general address. And do make sure you're on our mailing list too, so that you can keep abreast of future opportunities. There are a couple of ways to get involved with the Arts Council to learn more about what we do. They're all listed. They're listed under a heading called Ways to Get Involved on our website. A common way to work with us is to become a panelist and help us evaluate grant applications less frequently, but just as importantly, we also bring public editors in to help us to help get input on program policies. In other words, to revise our grant offerings and the ways that they are available to you all. A schedule of public calls for panelists, editors, and other opportunities are listed via this link. The general process for getting involved in this way would be to make your intention known in Smart Simple with an application. And if you're selected for service, you'll receive training and support from us, as well as be compensated for your work. So because I'm sort of a one-person show here, forgive me as I quickly check the chat just to make sure I'm not missing anything outstanding. Thank you, David. Thank you, Laura, for sharing links. I am going to stop for a moment to admit a few more people in, and then go over the agenda. So we've just gone through our grounding slides. I'm going to take a little bit of time to give you an overview of the special request program. We will then walk through the application. And as I said earlier, we'll then do some question and answer before reflecting on our session and closing. Again, I'm going to ask you all to remain on mute up until the Q&A period, simply because we've got quite a few folks in the room and it would be easy to talk over one another, which we don't want. So we're here today to talk about this special request program, and I'd like to start by giving you a little background on the program. Before 2017, MSAC was in the habit of using a very small portion of its budget to give discretionary grants that were in line with our mission to support the arts. Those grants were not attached to a review process, but they were attached to a publicly vetted strategic plan. So again, a small portion of our budget was reserved for that. In 2018, we decided that we wanted to increase our fiscal transparency and pretty much not do discretionary spending of any kind anymore in terms of our grants. And so this idea of the special request grant program came up, which we instituted to make sure that every bit of money that was being spent on grants could be tracked and was visible to the public. So that program had some flaws, and we decided to pause it for a while in 2022 so that we could go through a program revision in which we convened a panel of editors to help us develop new policies that would make it a little less unwieldy and a little more effective for the public. So what you're seeing today and what we'll be talking about today is the revised special request program, which just reopened last month. And all of the policies that are part of this program today were informed by our constituents. So thank you to you and your colleagues for helping us put this together. So what does the current program look like? Its purpose is to fund activities that are outside organizations' regular operations and are also aligned with MSAC's goals, which we listed in our grounding slides. What that means practically is that the special request grant supports 3 types of activities. The first would be innovative projects addressing stated constituent needs. The second would be pilot or one-time projects. And the third would be capacity building efforts. So I like to call the special request grant kind of a grab bag grant program because it supports these 3 kind of unusual and different types of activities. But what we had been hearing from the public over the years is that maybe they had an innovative project idea in mind, but they didn't have the budget to accomplish it. Or maybe they wanted to pilot something or hire a consultant to help them do some capacity building, but they didn't have the budget to do it. And on top of that, maybe sometimes they had trouble finding those resources through the Arts Council. So that's how the special request program came to be. And that's why we've ended up with the special request grant in its current form, again, which I call kind of a grab bag. An innovative project addressing stated constituent needs is basically any activity that demonstrates, first of all, that you are in conversation with the people that your organization serves and that you're trying to listen to them in terms of the programming or other activities that you're doing. A pilot or a one-time project definitely still has that constituent focus ideally, but it could be maybe a little more experimental, a little more creative, something that maybe you've been thinking about for a while, but again, you haven't had the funding to try out. Or perhaps if you did have the funding, you didn't necessarily want to take the risk of, taking away from another program to try out this pilot. Well, this program is sort of meant to help out with that. Capacity building efforts are more of an indirect benefit to your constituents in that sometimes it's necessary to do a needs assessment and check in with the people you serve to see if you're really doing what you intend to be doing. You can't do the needs assessment yourself, but the special request grant could theoretically help you hire a consultant to do that needs assessment. Other capacity building efforts could be executive searches. If you're in a time of staff transition and you want to hire a group to help you do a national search, special request could be used to do that. But there are all sorts of different ways of fitting one of these 3 criteria. So you're encouraged. In fact, at this moment, you're required to be in touch with our staff prior to starting an application in Smart Simple, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. Special request grants are currently offered in a funding range of $2,000 to $50,000, and the applicant makes the request within that range as part of the application. Yes, we are being recorded to address one of the questions in the chat, and this will go on YouTube soon. Our grant cycle is listed here. Applications can be accepted any day of the week at any time of day. They are rolling, in other words. But there are 2 further deadlines in fiscal year 23, at which time we will take up all of the applications received at that time and put them through review. The 2 further deadlines are April 1st and May 1st. So you have about 2 weeks to get your ideas in if you want to make that April deadline, and about 6 if you want to make that May deadline. A new feature of the special request grant is that it's now subject to external panel evaluation. So we have seated a panel of reviewers who are looking at all the applications that come in this year. Who is eligible for the special request grant? Well, we will take applications from, we would say Maryland organizations in the arts. So that covers both 100% dedicated arts organizations, but also other types of organizations that might have an arts focus in some portion of their programming. So you don't have to have 100% arts focus. You could be a history museum. You could even be a unit of government that is doing an arts project, and you'd be eligible to apply. We do require, however, that the special request application not be your first touch in the arts, that you would have one or more prior years of programming in the arts, and that before you start an application, you get in touch with our staff for a 30-minute screening call. This is not to put extra work on your plate or to make things more difficult or to seem too officious or anything. It's just that the special request grant program is kind of unusual in shape, and we want to make sure that we're able to touch base with you first in order to try to get your applications and it to be as competitive as possible. You may receive only one special request grant per fiscal year, but if you apply for a grant, a special request grant, you don't get it, you are permitted to reapply in the later cycle. So let's say you got an application in on April 1st and it was not successful, you would be able to reapply for May 1st. Broad support is encouraged. In other words, the funding that comes from this grant, if it supports your pilot project, that's great. But we do encourage you to think about other resources, other funding sources that could support that project. And there is a space in the application where you can report those just to demonstrate that you've got a lot of buy-in from multiple sources. Grants are currently funded through the end of fiscal 23 only, but we do hope to be able to continue the program next year. It's just a matter of how the budget settles out. Trying to keep up with chat. We do consider multi-year projects. So if you've got an idea for an innovative project that serves your constituency, but in your head it's going to be a multi-year plan, you could theoretically receive funding for that plan through the special request grant for a period of 3 years. In other words, you could get support this year and then come back with a second application next year and then a third application the year after that. But there's no guarantee that you would get all 3 grants. You would be permitted to, in other words. So that's a consideration for longer term projects. And there is an operating grant restriction. So MSAC has another grant program, our largest grant program, actually, Grants for Organizations, or GFO. If you receive a GFO grant and you also get a special request grant, you could not use that special request grant income to report on your GFO financial statement, which would then increase your GFO award total, if that makes sense. If you don't get a GFO award right now, then you don't need to think at all about what I'm saying. But if you do, that's the restriction. The grant is open and accepting applications right now to address a chat question, and the funds do have to be spent or obligated in fiscal 23, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So we are at the point where we can walk through the application together. The application consists of 8 narrative prompts and 4 financial data prompts. And here's the first narrative prompt. So you'll be asked, what category best describes the activities for which funding is being sought? And you'll see here in a drop-down menu, you will select exactly one of the project categories that are listed in the guidelines and that were listed earlier in this presentation. Innovative projects addressing stated constituent needs, pilot or one-time projects, or capacity building efforts. Grant funding is not split or weighted to one of these categories above the others. MSAC has no particular priority about funding a certain number of innovative projects versus pilot projects versus capacity building efforts. It's just really all based on what your organization needs. Note too that this is an unscored question. It's just a way of showing our panelists and us as a staff what category you're seeking funding in. Now here's the first scored question. What activities will be supported with this funding? Be detailed. And this is where you lay out how you would intend to spend the funds if you receive them. From here forward, you're going to see a little italic text at the bottom of each of the slides. This italic text is the rubric criterion that the panelists are going to be using to evaluate and score the question. So here you see that an excellent answer is going to have a clear, specific, and thorough explanation of the proposed innovative project, pilot or one-time project, or capacity building effort. So I'm continuing to get quite a few questions in the chat. I'm going to finish with the application walkthrough and try to get back to those in a little bit. But thank you for sharing. The next narrative prompt, state the organization's mission and regular activities. Describe the constituencies served by the organization's regular activities. Why do we want to know this? Because we want to know what you're doing, what you'd be doing in a normal granting period. What is your regular programming that you do? And not just that, but who does it serve? And, this would also be the place to talk about what kind of relationship you have with those groups or people or communities. So think about that. Make sure your answer is clear relative to your proposal, because again, this is a grant program that supports the unusual stuff that's happening outside of your regular activities. And here we start to get into that proposal. How will this project provide a direct or an indirect benefit to one or more groups in the organization's geographic area of service? So presumably you're located somewhere. If you're an organization that does not have a facility, presumably you're working in some area or in some geographic area or hoping to serve people here. So this project should provide a direct or an indirect benefit to those people. What does direct versus indirect mean? That's just our way of distinguishing between the pilot projects and the innovative projects. Those are presumably being put on directly for people like right now. They can engage with your organization when that programming is going on and receive a direct benefit. Whereas a capacity building project is going to be more of an indirect benefit, because that's where you're not really directly interacting with your constituents, but instead you are working with a consultant or doing some internal work to make your organization more effective in the long term. So that's more of an indirect benefit. And I'm not going to read the rubric criterion, assuming that you'll be able to read it yourself during this presentation, and then you can always either look at our guidelines or refer back to this recording once it's posted on YouTube. Next, narrative prompt. What factors make this an appropriate time to undertake the proposed project? Why now? Why not next year? Why not the year after that? And what we're looking for here is for you to show us that there's some strategy behind striking now. This too would be an appropriate place to talk about how, say, these constituent needs are overwhelming right now. Like, everybody's telling us that they want more educational offerings through our organization, but we've never really done education at that level before. So we want to try this out right now. We want to put it out on a trial basis, and we're seeking funding to help us out in that regard. Next narrative prompt, simple. What's the timeline for the activities? Most projects are going to be occurring within a fiscal year. If it's a multi-year project, just make it clear that you're seeking funding for the short term through this proposal, but you hope to continue the project on into the future, and that you may have the intention of seeking additional special request funds when the time comes. So this is where you kind of have to put your thinking caps on in a somewhat unusual way, in my opinion. What are the success indicators for this project? How do you know when you've done well? For example, are there numerical thresholds that you're trying to reach? Are you looking for feedback in the form of anecdotes or testimony from your constituents? If you're an event-based organization, are you looking for a particular attendance levels? Are you looking for the press to notice you? If so, which specific publications? Are there benchmarks for improved organizational efficiency? So this question is put in place to indicate to the reviewers, not just that you have an idea, but that you'll know when the idea has been fully realized. Basically, that you have an evaluation plan. And the next narrative prompt is about not just that you have an evaluation plan, but also that you have a plan for executing it. So there's a lot of forethought that has to go in here. How will data for project success indicators be collected and evaluated? You won't see this kind of question in every one of MSAC's grant applications, but you'll see it here because the supposition is that you're not seeking these funds lightly, that there instead is a pretty high relief need at your organization, and that you've really thought it through before coming to us for funding. And you'll see too that there are 8 narrative prompts and only 4 fiscal financial data prompts. So the weight of the application is on the story that you tell more than it is on the financial data that you provide, although that's very important too. And we're at the end of our narrative prompts now, and we're getting into our 4 financial prompts. The first 3 of these are quite simple in the application. They're just little fields that you fill in with a single figure. The first one is your annual operating budget. You just type it in. We're not asking you to upload an audit or a profit and loss statement or anything else. You just give us your operating budget in a single field. And then we're looking for a total estimated expense for the activity you're proposing here. And finally, your grant request, which again is between $2,000 and $50,000. That's relatively easy. The 4th financial data prompt is actually a chart. You'll click on a little button in the application that populates this chart that you see on the right. And here's where you give us a little bit more detail about your overall special request project budget, where you put in estimated expenditures that would be supported through any funds that you receive from MSAC versus any funds that you hope to be receiving or will be receiving from other resources. So you put the numbers in there, they automatically add up in a total project expenses area at the bottom of the chart. And then there are little description areas too on the right that you can use to give us an idea of whether this is going to be spent on payments to artists, contract for consultants, supplies, other things that would be supportive of your proposed project. And as with all MSAC grant applications, there are just a few more things that are part of the application process. Basic info about your organization, name / doing business as, address, phone number, through contact information. We need you to complete a W-9 form. And then finally to include an electronic signature, which is a legal affirmation that everything that you presented is true and correct to the best of your knowledge. And here's where it gets good, because it's Q&A time, and I want to scroll up in the chat just a little bit. I think I've actually only got one question. Can we submit a separate proposal for each category? I suppose theoretically you could, but you can only get funding for one proposal per year. So once you get that funding, the other applications, even if they're rated highly, they'll be automatically discounted. Personally, I would tell you to have a strategy session with your team and figure out the category of special request funding that is most important to your organization and focus your energy there. If you do have another project, think about saving it for another year. And that's the kind of info that we would get into in our pre-screening call, so that you're entering in with the most competitive application possible. Okay, I saw something come through. Can it be a capital project such as a bus turnaround in the parking lot? Debbie, unfortunately, no. MSAC doesn't currently support capital projects. But in fiscal 24, we will have, that's July 1st, we will have hired a capital project coordinator who will be building a capital support program for the Arts Council. So sit tight. That kind of thing will be coming up in the future, but no, unfortunately, not through this program. Can you get detailed feedback if already denied in the first round? Certainly, but it's not provided automatically. If one of your applications are denied in special request, your next step would be then to reach out to us and request feedback, which we would provide in a little PDF that you could read and share. And then we're always available by phone if you want to set up a meeting to talk things over. Can you describe some examples of projects that were funded in the past? I will, Christopher, but just bear in mind that that the guidelines were slightly different in the past. So that's not to say that it's the previous special request program is totally foreign to this version of it, but just know that there's one program revision sitting in between this and that. But these funds in the past, let's see, we funded a racial justice training series for a dance organization. We funded a theater creation program for people that are transitioning out of prisons and jails who want to get involved in the arts. I'm digging into the archives of my mind. Stephen, Laura, can you remember another one off the top of your head? If you are interested, you're
at 4:30 on a Thursday.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. Christopher, let's be in touch. Like if you want to talk more about that, I could get out the old grant log from last year and go through some more of those. There is also a list published on our website currently if you want to go to the special request page and click on the grants awarded. It's either grants awarded or previous grants awarded. There should be something you can see there. Sonia, can you discuss expenditure of funds? We're close to the end of fiscal 23. Very good question. Yeah, so funds really do need to be supporting fiscal 23 activities. Ideally, you would spend them all by the end of the fiscal year, but if you can't do that, then we would ask you to obligate those funds. And the definition of obligate is something that we as a staff are still talking with our leadership about to get a firm line on it. But roughly what that means is that if you have funds, if you have like liquid funds left over on June 30th, then they really need to be attached to some documentation that says there's only one way that we intend to or even can legally spend these funds going forward. So like a contract or a budget statement perhaps, or something along those lines that would just guarantee that not spending the funds in that way would cause some sort of legal issue or legal harm to come to pass. Let me know if that's helpful, Sonia. If it's not, we could certainly find some time to talk more about it. And again, it's also an issue that we as an Arts Council are investigating further. Sharmila, will we be more competitive requesting within a certain grant range? No, we don't instruct panelists to consider $2,000 requests any differently from $50,000 requests. However, I will say that we don't have a huge amount of funding for the special request program this year currently. So that doesn't mean you should under request, but I would advise you just to request what it costs. Don't unnecessarily pad your budget. If you have a program laid out that you're definitely sure is going to cost $47,000, then request 47, don't go for that extra 3 if you don't need it, because as you can see from the number of people on this call, there's a lot of folks interested, and there are a lot of deserving arts organizations across the state. Can you clarify the pre-screening process? Jimmy, certainly. That would just be a matter of emailing me and setting up a time to talk by phone. I've had a couple of screening calls even today, and in those calls, we can kind of use the time however is best for you. Some people come in and they have additional questions about the program that I answer. Some people come in and they have a fully fleshed out proposal and they want to say, would this work? Can you tell me? And I provide comments. And then other people come in and they have 2 or 3 different ideas, and they just want a little insight about how to move forward. And I try to offer some advice there too. So yeah, Jimmy, I would look forward to hearing from you. My contact information is posted on msac.org. And yeah, just reach out. Kel, if we have questions during our grant writing process, is there staff available by telephone or email to assist us? Yes, absolutely. Anna, I missed the beginning of the presentation. Are current grantees eligible for this funding? Well, your organization can only receive 1 special request grant per year. So if you would be eligible, I guess, in fiscal 23, as long as you met the organizational guidelines, because we haven't given any previous grants in fiscal 23. However, if you are a current grantee of another Arts Council program, like grants for organizations, or say you got a creativity grant, your organization did, yes, you could still apply for questionable request, special request funding in this grant cycle. Sorry, again, it's late in the day. Oni, forgive me for mispronunciation if I did. Would you fund a mobile sewing program? It's a possibility. If it falls into one of those categories, I think absolutely one of the 3 categories. So, let's get on the phone together and talk it through. Sounds kind of interesting. Is staff time on a project an allowable expense? It would be. It should be prorated though to the project that you're proposing. Sarah, hey Sarah, would an artist commission count as proper documentation if your program bridges between fiscal 23 and fiscal 24? I want to say yes, but I would want to talk with you a little bit more about the language that would be included in that artist commission document, or what kind of documentation you would have, what date it would be in place, what the scope of work looks like and how it's described. And I'm sorry to be a broken record, but again, the idea of obligating funds is still something that we're researching as a staff. So we're giving you the best information as of today. I would say that anybody who would intend to obligate funds from a special request grant should be in touch often up to the time that you submit your application, so that we could give you the latest information possible. Catherine, will this be an annual program with the end of fiscal 23 so close? Yeah, we hope so. I mean, the fiscal 24 budget is not completely settled and approved yet, but we really hope to continue offering this grant. We can't guarantee it, unfortunately, but the fact that there are so many people on the call today, I think that speaks to a level of interest and need across the state that lets us know as a staff that we're onto something with this particular grant offering. So that's a good thing. Thanks to everyone for taking time to be here. If we're looking to fund a program for fall 23, when does the window open for 24? And will the application be similar to this one? Yeah, I think my last answer probably addressed the future of the special request program in subsequent fiscal years. I can't imagine that the application would be substantially different at all to the one that we're offering now, since we just went through a revision process, and what you see in the application now pretty much reflects what our constituents have said they needed. Peter, can funds be used for specific equipment? As long as it's not capital equipment, certainly, and as long as it's connected to one of the 3 project categories. Joel, what is the fiscal year period for this funding, meaning calendar months within which we need to spend the funds? So, right, different organizations have different fiscal years. Our fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th. That's everything that I see in the chat. I'm going to try and open up the video again and see if I have any hands up. I don't see any immediately. But I'm happy to take more in the chat, or to, if you want to raise your hand. I think that I'll be able to see you if you raise your hand. So if you, there's somebody giving a direct message in the chat about being on our website but not seeing the special request page. So it's under programs. If you roll over programs with your mouse, it opens a long list of options, and the options are listed alphabetically. So you would scroll all the way down to the one that says special request and click there. Thank you, Stephen, for putting a direct link to our special request page in the chat.
And Chad, I believe David Barrett is raising a hand physically.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, David.
David, you are still on mute.
That was my question about not being able to locate the special projects. Now, so look at my phone to tell you where I am, but I don't see this. You said scroll down.
So on the main MSAC page, you can roll over well, I guess you would touch with your finger the programs button, and that should open a long list of programs. The last of which is special request.
Okay, I'll keep working at it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we've done pretty well with time today, actually, and we have 15 minutes left. So even if you feel like you have a small question or there's something you want to go more in depth on, now's the time if anybody cares to share. And because of the way my tech setup is and the tech issues that we're having, I can't see you if you physically raise your hand. So the little the hand raise tool under reactions, that'd be the way to go, or to use the chat. If a grant application is denied in April, will it automatically be submitted in May? Katrine, no, it will not. You would have to revise and resubmit. Kel, go ahead. Kel, I saw you type hand raise into the chat, but I can't see you or hear you.
And Kel, I can see you speaking. You'll need to come off mute by clicking the mute button.
I should be unmuted.
We can hear you now. Thanks, Kel.
Okay, great. I'm president of Community Players of Salisbury. We are recipients of operating grants and appreciate this opportunity. We are embarking on a major project, if we can find the funds, to basically convert our current rehearsal and meeting space into a performing arts space. It will involve a lot. We would look at the whole thing as a capital expense, and when the capital project person comes on, we will be talking to that person. But there is a lot of portions of the project that would be considered operating, like contracting someone to clear our parking lot and things like that. So I guess I need to know if we can break up this project into operating and apply for some of this grant money, or do I have to wait?
Yeah, what you're describing, well, I can't say yes or no right now, but that's sort of the reason that we have the screening call element in place. And so I would want to talk to you further, Kel, offline about
Okay,
how you
okay.
might frame some of those operating costs in a way that would make sense for this program. And based on that chat, I would either say, yeah, go ahead with special request, or maybe it's not a great fit. So yeah, well, why don't you reach out after today's meeting and we'll
I
find some
did
time.
talk to Laura Weiss a few weeks ago, and she told me that the capital project hopefully will occur in July. But I think we ought to have a few things that could be regarded as operating expenses.
Yeah, let's talk more about
On
that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kel. Shannon, will the recording of this session be posted on our website? No, actually, it'll be posted on YouTube. But when we do post it, we'll put some social media notifications out, linking people on how to access this session. Can you thoroughly describe the delineation between a capital expenditure and a capacity building effort expenditure? Capital expenditure is about permanent equipment. It's about infrastructure. A capacity building effort is anything outside of that framework that supports the long-term visibility, stability, effectiveness of an organization. A capacity building effort is going to deal with staff oftentimes, or additional contractors or consultants that you're bringing in to help you accomplish a goal. Sometimes those consultants are going to be helping with staff searches at the leadership level. Sometimes they're going to be working with your constituents to figure out if you're doing a good job. Sometimes those consultants are going to be multimedia producers who might be producing a 1-minute video that tells the story of your organization and why it's important. So, John, if you had an idea for your organization, again, I think that you and I can get in touch after the meeting and talk more about where to draw that line and whether your idea is good for this program. I know Alex has had his hand up for a while. Go ahead, Alex.
Hi there. I just wanted to clarify and make sure that if we need to set up a phone call with you, that it's just you or emailing, not another member of staff. Like, we should only be emailing you to set up that phone call.
Yes, that's the quickest route. If you emailed somebody else, they would just bounce you to me.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, David,
Can I speak?
I've got your email address.
Okay, thank you.
I will email that link after the
Okay,
meeting
because
today.
I clicked on it from the chat, but I'm not sure if it'll still be there when this goes down, so I want to be sure.
We'll get you sorted out.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Got some gratitude in the chat. Always nice to hear that these sessions are effective. Looks like John's going to get in touch. Great. I haven't even checked the time, actually. We have 10 minutes left, so if people have more they want to talk about, we could certainly do so.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, David.
I got one more question. Our executive director forwarded this, sent me a text message to tell me about this session it was around 2:00. I was in another meeting. So how can I get on your mail list, so I don't have to rely upon someone else telling me about this?
No, we can help you with that. There's a link you can go to. And as a matter of fact, when I email you after this meeting, I will email the link to the special request page and also the link on how to join our mailing list.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Joel.
Hey, Chad, thank you.
Hey.
Just kind of expanding on or going off of the capital versus capacity conversation. If marketing is one of those pieces that you want to build out, and so what's the dividing line on marketing? Because you mentioned like consultants, but also
Right.
like what if you needed to figure out more marketing or actually run some campaigns? Like, what's kind of the line?
The line in my interpretation would be about whether the marketing supports the program excuse me, the organization or a program of the organization. If it
Okay.
supports the organization, then it would be allowable. But if it's supporting a single program, that would be something I'd want to talk a little more with you about, because that could very easily begin to drift a little bit outside the purpose of the special request program.
Just to expand on it a little further, so when you say supporting the organization, I mean, we're a theater, as most are here, but sorry, I'm trying to formulate my question properly here.
That's all right.
So marketing we do performances, so like general marketing would be advertising the theater and the different performances that we have. But if we were talking like a program, like we wanted to roll out a new program, something inclusive or anything like that, and we wanted to get more exposure to it. So is that kind of like a differentiation between the two that you were describing, or is?
Yeah, potentially. But if it were to support a program, then the program would have to be already in place, and it would have to be already presumably funded in some way, and it would have to be outside of the regular operations of the organization.
Okay.
That's the quick answer. And I think that probably we'd want to talk a little more offline.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that first of all, whether it's a good idea for you to move forward with this grant, and then also to provide some more tailored feedback to help you with a potential application.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure thing. Probably take one or two more if people have more questions. Well, let's move on to reflections. Then this is our time to hear from you on whether this was a useful session. I'm definitely getting some gratitude in the chat, which is really nice to hear, actually, at the end of a long day. But any other comments that you might have, criticism is welcome too, like the Zoom platform is no good, or the virtual, I wish you did this in person instead of virtual, all that kind of thing. This is the moment to share any thoughts on that regard. Cheryl, what does the question fiscally sponsored mean? It means that an artist or a group of artists is in agreement with an organization to act as the recipient of any grant funds that would support the activities of that artist or group of artists. That too is something that we can talk more about offline if you have further questions. Lots of gratitude. Hey, busy. Great. Well, I appreciate you. If you have further reflections, you can share them at our general email address, and you can also email me directly. Hey, Christina, what about one-time programming for a county's sesquicentennial celebration? Well, that's a special thing on a total, just on a vocabulary basis, sesquicentennial. Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's not something you're celebrating every year. So a county being a unit of government, I would say if there are festivals or special programming attached to that anniversary, we could talk more about that. Thank you, Laura, for sharing my email directly in the chat. Again, it is on our website as well, but if anybody wants to copy that down and get in touch, that would be great. And you have our gratitude for doing the work that you do, for making Maryland so rich in the arts. There's our mailing list link, David. I will email that to you after this session, and that is all we have. So go forth, have a good evening, and it sounds like I'll be talking to some of you soon. Thank you very much.